I think this is the part where we have to have the talk. And the talk is, we're behavior analysts. I don't care what the diagnosis is. Diagnoses are irrelevant. They're categorical expressions that have been formalized by a large governing body that collect response classes and organize them across various features. Great. So they're a great starting point if you have them to start pulling on the thread of what are the particular behaviors that are an actual problem, but they should not be determinant in how you intervene.
Hey, did you know you can actually earn BACB CEUs if you're listening to this episode? If you'd like to learn more, including about our Behavior Analyst Certification Board CEUs, that is continuing education units for people that hold the credentials by the BACB, you can go to explanatoryfiction.com and find this episode. Welcome to Explanatory Fiction. It's very important that you know how this podcast is structured. We've randomly generated this case. The variables are entirely fictional. That's right, because with the power of math and science, you can actually do these things now. In fact, the name Damian King was randomly generated too. And the episode art, you guessed it, also made by artificial intelligence. But the best part is our team is real and the conversations that ensue are designed as a game that you get to play along with us. In each episode, we have one person that is evaluating the case from a clinical decision-making model, and the others are accomplices of mine who are trying to stump the analyst. Our challenge to you is, can you figure out a possible treatment model before us? Here we go. Damian is a 15-year-old high school student that was adopted at a young age by his parents, Noah and Amelia. They reside in the beautiful state of Maine. He's been diagnosed with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD, but has been under control in the past through medication. Now, it's an open house at Pleasantville High, and Damian King's parents are visiting with his teacher, Andrew. Andrew is sharing how Damian's first few weeks have started, and his parents hear a few things that concern them. Andrew is reporting that Damian is struggling with some routines in the classroom and some of his work isn't going as expected either. His parents hide their concerns during the open house, but make a phone call the next day to the school principal. The principal scrolls his contacts and remembers a behavior analyst that is just right for the case. You. So we're going to pick up first at the open house.
So guys, I just wanted to kind of touch base about some of the stuff I'm seeing from Damian. I've noticed that he's checking the doors a lot and asking about the door being locked pretty frequently. He asks about whether I get text messages, and he takes a long time to get back to his seat. And when he does, he gets up and he sits down multiple times before finally sitting. He's also started to line up his pencils and materials on his desk pretty obsessively.
That's interesting.
That's new.
How about his schoolwork?
Well, I mean, all the things I just mentioned have kind of been interfering with the schoolwork to a certain degree. He seems to struggle more with class content than I expected. He has a hard time writing notes during lectures. He'll zone out for a fair bit. He just kind of stares off. He struggles with the assignments that have multiple steps. So a lot of times I'm coming up to the desk and I'm saying, "Hey buddy, let's make sure we're still working through it. Looks like you're on step 3. And he has a hard time getting started on most assignments. Same sort of deal. I'm reminding him a couple times before he finally gets started. There's always something, whether it's needing a pen or standing up and sitting down and kind of losing his train of thought. That's been hard for him to get started on stuff.
Well, that's a little concerning.
Really? How about his relationships with friends and stuff in class?
Oh, Damian's got a ton of friends. He gets along great with his peers. He's a really funny guy. And I mean, at the end of the day, he's a high schooler, just getting through his day, kind of goofing off a little bit. He's got some little quirks about him, but I mean, he's got his friends. He eventually gets the assignments done. So,
Hey, thank you for your time today, and you have a great classroom. It's been great having you show us around.
It's a super lovely classroom. Thank you for all that you're doing with Damian. I know we really appreciate it, and he appreciates it.
So Amelia and Noah talk on the drive home and they agree they should do something. So Amelia calls the principal the next day, Carter, to ask him for some suggestions.
Hi, Carter.
Hi, this is Carter.
Sorry to bug you during the school day. I'm sure you're super busy. I just wanted to get in touch because we met Damian's teacher, Andrew, last night at the open house. He has a super lovely classroom and really seems to enjoy having Damian in his class, but he did bring up a few things that we're a little bit concerned about regarding his classroom performance and behavior. Is this something that we need to be concerned about? Is it something you're aware of?
Hi, Amelia. I believe we met briefly last night, right?
Yes.
So I'm looking now at our systems and I see Andrew hasn't requested any additional support. So let's see what options we have real quick.
Yeah, that would be really great. I know Andrew mentioned some unique behaviors, like it sounds like Damian's checking the door a bunch and lining up his pencils and sitting up and down and not really getting to his work and really being distracted. So Noah and I were wondering if maybe there's an outside professional that might be able to help with that.
Oh, you know what? I actually know the perfect person to suggest then, Dr. Dimitri McCready's. He's got an eye for these sorts of things, and don't tell him I said this. But he is a fun guy to talk with too. I think you'll really enjoy him. So, let's start there. I'll let him know that you'll be contacting him if that's all right by you.
That would be just wonderful. Thank you so much. It was great to meet you last night, Carter. Thanks again.
You too, Amelia. Have a great day.
So Amelia contacts Dr. McCready's and sets up a home visit and schedules it for 2 weeks out. So your goal is to obtain information, but also to see if you can go to the school as a next step for an observation. So for those listening, please know that Dimitri hasn't heard the entirety of all of this. You know a little bit more than he does. And this is just a fun writing style, something we're exploring here. So let us know what you think about it. Dimitri, you know the principal is open to some outside consultation, but the parents need to approve it. So while you're going into this home visit with both Noah and Amelia, that's kind of your end goal.
Hello.
Hey, you must be Dimitri.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Noah. This is my wife, Amelia. Please come on in.
Hi, welcome. Come in. Can I get you some water or anything?
Oh, no, thank you. I would never take the water.
Yeah, come on in. Come on into the kitchen. Let's talk a little bit. Our son Damian started at a school and we really weren't too concerned until we met with this teacher at a parent conference recently. And he brought to our attention some things that now we're a little bit concerned about. We talked to the principal we called after and he gave us your number. So I guess we can give you some background. Damian's adopted. We got him when he was a year and 2 months. And we don't know anything about his family before that, but as he was growing up, we noticed he was a little bit delayed in some of his speech and language milestones. But you know, Amelia and I were really good at kind of sharing the load, and we really targeted those, and we caught him right up. So together we were able to overcome. But we still see it.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you real quick. And I really want to get into Damian's history, and that's going to be very critical for this process. But before we go down that path, if you don't mind, would you just tell me a little bit about the specific problem that you folks called me about, and then we'll get to those other factors. Because I definitely want to hear all about his history and learn all those things. It's just easier for me to put into context when I'm hearing information from you if I know kind of like what is the problem that we're looking to solve here, kind of what are the things your concerns are about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess I would say it's kind of some quirks and delays that we're encountering. What do you think, Amelia?
Yeah, well, he has ADHD, and so some of the stuff that's coming up are things that we saw when he was younger, like having a hard time starting his work, zoning out a bit more. But really, I mean, that's not new to us. The new stuff is really some of the things the teacher described, like almost obsessive type behaviors. Like he's going and checking the door multiple times, and he's kind of not sitting properly, sort of standing up and sitting down and standing up and sitting down, and he's lining things up on the desk. And I don't know, he just seems more worried, or maybe he's trying to avoid work, but it was something new to us.
So so he hasn't done this in the past. It's just so now let's get into a little bit of the historical factors here. Sorry, no, let's go back.
No, yeah, okay, sure.
So we've seen this kind of sudden onset of, I'm going to call it, let's just say, repetitive and rigid behavior. Does that seem like a reasonable phrasing to use?
Actually, so we do have regular psychologist appointments for him because of his ADHD.
Okay.
And so the psychologist is thinking about obsessive compulsive disorder.
Okay. Those two things are features of OCD. So why don't we just, without a formal diagnosis, let's just focus kind of like, I'm going to focus more on what he's doing. And then we'll just keep that kind of in the background, in the back of our minds in terms of like maybe an overarching umbrella of categorizing what we're seeing with a particular word. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so he is doing some obsessive stuff, and that kind of looks like, or the way that you can observe it is with this like rigid, repetitive stuff where he's kind of going back and forth, checking things, putting things in order, that kind of thing. Now, this is new, you're saying? He just out of left field kind of came, or walk me a little bit about when did this start happening?
Yeah, it's pretty new, I would say, right, Noah?
Yeah, we'll notice him like get up and sit down at his chair when like at dinner and things, but not really the level of, I guess, anxiety or you said, the compulsion that his teacher Andrew reported seeing in the classroom.
Yeah, we're not seeing it as intensely as Andrew described.
Okay, so you're not seeing it quite to that level, but you have seen some patterns that
I'm noticing it more since he's
over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'm noticing it more since he pointed it out to us, but it's barely noticeable, almost like he's concealing it. Like when he stands up and sits down before eating a meal with us, it's very kind of bobbing, but when Andrew was talking about it, it was like he was fully
Super
standing up and
exaggerated.
sitting down. Yeah.
It's more and more exaggerated. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So now, Noah, you had mentioned that you guys had noticed some delays when he was growing up. Walk me through that a little bit.
Sure. He was hitting his milestones just a little bit behind. So, we both worked with him and worked on kind of that speech progression and tried to get him up to speed with his peers. And, his teacher even mentioned now he's basically completely social. He's making all kinds of friends at school. So we're really proud of what we were able to do and kind of overcoming some of those initial barriers.
Wonderful. Amazing. So is this starting to impede his ability to participate in the class now? And is it causing regression or loss of skills, or is it causing him issues with the teacher or disciplinary problems?
He said it's taking a lot of reminders to get him through like longer tasks now, which, I mean, he likes things that he might not be great at, but if the teacher brought it up, I imagine that it's concerning to him because he's having to remind him to start work and to keep focusing on that work, which, I mean, we were used to a little bit with the ADHD, but it sounds like it might be a little bit beyond that.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of questions that I could ask right now about his history. I could ask some other things, but honestly, if I could just take 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, if I could just maybe hang out and just watch him play, or maybe even just hang out with him a little bit, that'd be very helpful. Just so I can get a feel for what we're talking about here at home and kind of seeing what that muted version of it looks like. And then maybe afterwards we can answer some more questions, or even depending on what's required, we could set up an observation at school so I can kind of get a contrast of the two things that we're looking at. Because when you see that kind of differentiation or distinction between how people operate at home versus how they do it in another environment, that makes you think there's an actual environmental variable that's controlling it necessarily, not necessarily something inside of them, or, some deficit that they may have. So it would really help me to see kind of how things function here and then get a comparative contrast for what's going on in school. So would that work for you guys? Could I get some time with him? Maybe we could sit down somewhere and I could just chat him up.
Yeah. I mean, that
I think that would be great.
Makes total sense.
Great. Wonderful. Hi, Damian.
Hi.
You ever heard
Who are you?
DMX? I'm a fan.
I'm Damian.
I'm just kidding.
Who are you? I'm
just kind of here to get to know you a little bit and see what's going on. What you playing with? You doing anything in your bedroom or anything?
Yeah, I was just playing some GTA.
GTA? I love some GTA. Let's go do it.
Oh, yeah.
You ever seen the 9/11 DLC?
No, what's that?
It's awesome. It's a meme.
Oh.
It's jokes, bro. It's online.
Gotcha.
So what's going on, bro?
Not much. Just playing my games and wondering what you're doing here still.
I'm going to be very straightforward with you. Your teacher and your parents said you've been maybe a little intense lately, or maybe a little on edge, and they asked me to come talk to you about it and kind of see what's going on and just get some information. So I figured I could just kind of talk to you about it and see what the deal is.
Oh, Mr. Anders has been giving me some trouble lately, saying I'm not getting enough done.
Is that your teacher?
Yeah.
He's giving you the business?
He's a nice guy, and I think just doing his job, but sometimes he just really annoys me.
Oh, yeah? How's that?
I mean, like, I'm just trying to take a minute, and he hovers over me.
Yeah. Is it like you're taking a minute, or is it like you're taking 5 minutes?
I mean...
And it's really seems like 1 minute. I'm just wondering, no judgment.
I don't know what it seems like. It feels pretty quick to me.
Okay, fair enough.
I just want to be thorough.
Are you getting everything done at least?
I get some extensions on projects.
Okay. But other than that, you're getting it done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How your friends at school? You got some friends?
Tommy and Brian are my best buds.
Nice. What do you guys do together?
We usually play some GTA online a bit. At school, we take our phones out and play some Among Us together and just hang, you know.
Okay. So so would you classify yourself as a gamer?
I don't know. A bit, yeah.
Okay. It's the best game of all time.
Old school or new school?
I mean, you tell me, bro.
I love Fortnite, but I also really like Genshin Impact.
I have no idea what that is.
Oh, man. Whoa.
What is that?
You gotta try it.
Okay, what kind of game is it?
It's,
Sounds like an RPG, but may not be.
Yeah, it's got lots of action in it, some fighting and stuff. You know, the good guys taking on the bad guys kind of thing?
Okay. All right, action adventure maybe?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, well, I'll have to check that out.
You want to play?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a run. Well, hold on. Is it like, do I have to design a character? Is this going to take like 3 hours, or can I just hop in for like a quick situation?
You can play as my character.
Oh, man, I don't want to mess your progress up.
Okay, well,
I'm
I'll
not
just
gonna
keep
do that
playing
to
then.
you. I understand the value of your items list, and I would never want to waste your resources, but thank you for the opportunity.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I can watch you do it here for a minute if you'd like. I really don't have a lot more questions for you. I just wanted to check in because people are a little concerned about some stuff. Actually, the standing that you just did, I noticed that you did that a couple times. What's with the standing? Is it just like a thing you do, or did you even notice that you did that?
Yeah, I just had to stretch.
Oh, okay. My mistake. I misunderstood.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand completely. Like right there, you're just getting your legs.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm sitting right.
What does that mean exactly?
Like, I want to make sure that my body is positioned in the chair appropriately.
Okay. All right. I got to say, Damian, you're an incredibly advanced young man.
Thanks.
You know a lot about yourself and what's going on in the world, and you seem to have an answer for everything. So I'm not really sure why I'm here either. So I'll tell you what.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi Noah, how's it going?
Doing okay. Just checking in. You guys getting along?
Oh yeah. He's playing Genshin Impact.
Oh, you love
was
that.
Playing GTA.
Who is this guy?
What's that, Damian?
Dad, who is this guy?
Oh, this is Dimitri. He's gonna be helping out a little bit. Dimitri, you want to go touch base real quick?
Yeah, I'm good to go. Hey man, thanks for your time, Damian. I appreciate it. I'm gonna go talk to your mom and dad for a little bit, and I'm gonna get out of here. But it's a pleasure meeting you, sir.
See ya.
Have a lovely evening.
Hey, Dimitri, we took a look at the consent form. We're all good for you to be able to visit the school and chat with the principal and Andrew whenever. I mean, you're here, so
sure.
Tomorrow, whenever you're available to.
Okay, great. I'll call them and just let them know I'm coming, so that way I'm not kind of surprising them. Just real quick, I asked him some questions. I got to say, your kid's pretty, on point. He's hilarious. He seems to be doing pretty fine by my estimation. An answer for everything.
Great.
He's clever. He's got his little retorts. Yeah. He's quite.
We've really worked hard. Make sure he's had lots of groups and things.
Yeah. You can tell he's the product of wonderful parenting.
Mom?
Yeah.
Is the door locked?
Yep. Yeah, it's locked. You're good.
Did you check it, or are you just telling me that?
I checked it while you were with Dimitri.
Can you check again?
Sure, I can check again.
Thank you.
Dimitri, touch base with Andrew, and we'll be happy to hear your recommendations. Everything should be signed, so you should be good to go, and you can get there.
Thanks so much for coming.
See you
Thanks for coming by.
Oh, no, thank you. It was lovely. Thank you.
All right, so with approval locked in, now you can drive that sweet 2007 Scion XB of yours to Pleasantville High, where you're greeted and escorted to Damian's classroom, which is led by Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, lovely. Thank you for having me. Is there anything that works better for you in terms of, I'm here to do an observation with Damian? I don't know if the principal was able to touch base with you. Were they?
Yeah, I'd love to give you like a bit of a rundown of what we're seeing.
Sure, absolutely. Let's step out and do that. Sure, absolutely. Give me what's going on.
Awesome.
Love to hear it.
I mean, it's kind of hard to put into words, so I'm hoping that when you see it, you can kind of navigate it better than I have. But I've noticed a lot of different things. Damian's really struggling with problem solving. He struggles to come up with different solutions to a problem when his first attempt doesn't work. So the other day, his pen ran out of ink, and he asked his friend if he could borrow a pen. His friend didn't have one. Damian didn't take any other steps to try and resolve the issue. It was actually not until I came over and asked him to get started on his work that he told me he didn't have a pen.
So when you tell me he doesn't, I'm trying to like understand what you mean by he doesn't take other steps. So does he just shut down and stare at the paper, or stare at the unfinished, unresolved issue? Does he seem to like repetitively do the wrong thing over and over again out of frustration, or just is it just like some bizarre autonomic response where he looks like an automaton, just where the loop and the record broke and we're on repeat? Like, when you say he's not seeking out other solutions, I need a little more context, if you don't mind.
I mean, it's not like one of his quirks with his lining stuff up and all that sort of stuff that we've been noticing. It's just kind of, I mean, he looks like a kid ready to start his test without a pen in his hand, and he just kind of hangs in that pose.
Like frozen in time?
Not frozen, but he looks like he's
okay.
contemplating, but he doesn't actually have a game plan following that.
But he never initiates either getting help or trying something, looking into his own things to find the solution. It just kind of hits a wall, and that's that.
Yeah, after that first
So there's like no initiative maybe to proactively move to the next thing to solve it. Is that a fair characterization?
There's always that first attempt, but after that, yeah, that's fair.
Okay, and are you finding that if you step in and nudge him, does he get moving again? And does he do it? Does he just need a nudge to get moving, or do you actually have to show him the solution to the problem?
He will restate the problem. I'll say, "Hey, Damian, let's get started." He's like, "Well, I don't have a pen."
Okay.
And
then you say,
"Then I'll get him a pen." And yeah, and then he gets started.
And then he'll say what? Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
So
get started is relative. It depends if he's got to do his stand up, sit down routine or anything like that.
Yeah, I noticed that. I did an observation at his house last night, and I did see the stand up, sit down thing that he does. Does that happen a lot?
Yeah, every day, multiple times a day.
Okay. Now, does he leave his area, or does he just stand up, sit down, and that's that?
No, I mean it's over and over again. Stand up, sit down, same spot. By like the 7th or 8th round, he sits for good.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, with his friends too. When they're kind of we've done a couple group projects, and just when they're kind of conversing in general, he doesn't really practice any sort of problem resolution with his friends. He just will kind of shut down. I mean, if it's group project, he gets the free ride on the grade. If it's an actual disagreement with his friends, I mean, they've even gotten frustrated with him in terms of how much he just doesn't contribute to the conversation or the resolution at all. And then he just...
So you're saying he's kind of hard to talk to? I'm still trying to understand.
Yeah, he wants... it's not that he's hard to talk to. It's just that he doesn't contribute much to the problem solving side of problems. Once someone throws out a resolution, he's totally on board. He just goes with the flow and says, yeah, that's what we can do. But in terms of the critical thinking component, he always takes a bit of a backseat.
Would you say that is he influenced to do things that are against his interests?
No, like I'm not worried about him in that sort of way.
Will he assert himself if it's against his interest?
Not really.
So you're telling me that if his friends told him to jump off a bridge, he'd do it?
I mean, he's a bright kid. He's not going to jump off a bridge, but you'd probably entertain the conversation for a while before you decided to do something about it.
You would debate the merits of it.
Well, I mean,
settle on the right side.
I don't think he'd jump off the bridge, but I think that he might leave the conversation with his friends thinking he's going to jump off a bridge.
Oh, I see. So he's just not confrontational.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, a lot of people aren't confrontational. Okay. He needs some nudges.
I mean, he
does a little bit of a quirky standing up, standing out thing, and he goes with the flow a lot.
Yeah.
He has difficulty participating in, well, not participating, but he has difficulty contributing.
Yes.
To group or social projects.
And
what else am I missing here?
Multitasking is really hard for him. If there is a project, I mean, we did a book report a couple weeks ago. Literally each step in the process of completing the project, I had to go up in and remind him to get started. He'll zone out and stare at his desk or the board instead of moving along or asking for help. I'm pretty sure he zones out during lectures. He his notes for my lectures are abysmal. He looks like he's attending. I know he's got ADHD and he's on medication for that, and I mean, I guess that's kind of what this looks like. But he's just zoning out all the time. I don't know if it's the quality of my lecture.
I don't mean to press you here.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't mean to press you here. I just trying to really, I mean, you're using these really kind of broad descriptors, and you know, they definitely sound like a problem. So I don't want to diminish them as a problem, but I'm trying to understand, like, when you say zoning out, do you mean like he retreats into an imaginary world where you need to shock him back to reality? I mean, are you saying that he simply daydreams for a moment? Are you saying that he looks away often and stares off, but when he's redirected, he re-engages? But those frequent episodes of that.
I'd say that last
give me
one.
A little bit
like,
more
I've had times where I've had to like snap in his face to kind of be like, "Hey, come on, let's go, dude."
Okay.
And
he needs a little bit of a little bit of like a oomph to get back into reality if he's gone for a minute.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the harder the task, the harder it is to bring him back.
Okay. So there is a difficulty component here.
Oh, yes. Like I said, multi-step projects are always a struggle.
So for the multi-step projects, are those kind of open-ended projects, or do they have clear step-by-step processes that they're given that they can read through and work through?
I mean, it's the same rubric the rest of the kids have, and they're fine.
I understand. That's wonderful. And I'm sure that was an answer to part of my question. But what I'm asking is, are there explicit steps that a person could follow to complete the assignment? Or is the rubric general categories that the students arrange for themselves to produce a novel product?
It depends on the subject. So, I mean, for creative writing, it's a bit more open-ended. For history, it's a bit more concrete in terms of the steps. And even when I do... Is there a
difference between the concrete and open-ended assignments?
In terms of his performance?
Yes.
Not really. It's... okay. And then...
Is there a subject matter differentiation between his performance?
Not that I've noticed. I mean, I know that he will, when he stares off, I can redirect him sometimes, but he doesn't always actually start his work. Okay. So let me just ask you very directly. What are you hoping that I can help you with specifically? I mean, to be honest, I think he's doing fine. I was just alerted that mom and dad had reached out to you, Noah and Amelia, and they wanted to do they wanted you to do an observation. But I mean,
okay, I'm going to be very, very direct with you and transparent with you, Andrew. That's not exactly what I had understood. I had understood that you had mentioned and had expressed some concerns about what was going on in the classroom to his parents.
I mean, and
that's why they asked me to come in, because they wanted to get.
Yeah, I mean, we had parent-teacher conference, and I mean, I'm sure I told them what they already know. So I mean, like,
yes, but in terms of it inhibiting his performance or in some way,
I mean, I guess
inhibiting his learning.
I guess.
So it's not, or it is.
It is.
Okay.
I don't think it's the fire that mom and dad think it is.
Okay, so from your point of view, the redirections are more than normal, but not to the point where they're challenging for you to work through in the classroom.
I mean, he's an outlier in my class, and he is falling behind.
He is falling behind.
Yes.
So you're saying compounded over time, this will definitely be a bigger problem than it is today.
I mean, he's made it up to 9th
grade. So even though
grade.
it's not a problem today, it's going to be a problem tomorrow. Is that what you're saying?
He's made it this far.
We've all made it this far, buddy. I'm just trying to understand if making it this far today, we can keep making it as far, or if we're going to fall off the cliff tomorrow.
I mean, I don't think he's going to fall off the cliff tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. But do you think that it is going to be a problem if we don't address it?
I mean, I think it would depend if his goal is to go to college. I think he could make it through 12th grade.
Okay, that's perfect. That's great. Let me ask you one more question, if you don't mind, Andrew. And I really appreciate the details you're giving me. You've been a great conversational partner here. Honestly, it's unbelievable. We're do you have any kind of incentive system or any kind of way to kind of get the kids motivated in the class that you use just to spice it up a little bit?
Maybe. I mean, like what?
I don't know, like points, like maybe make learning a competition, like that kind of thing.
I mean,
or even just like clear-cut expectations, like, finishing work in a particular time frame to, I don't know, get breaks.
Oh no, nothing like that. I mean, sometimes I dress up for history
Visual
day,
schedules,
and like I dressed up as Albert Einstein
Nice.
last week. The kids love that.
Lovely.
But
nothing like a German patent clerk.
Oh, you're familiar?
Swiss. Oh, yeah, I don't know. It's new to me. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, it was a blast.
Absolutely.
But
Wonderful.
I mean, other than like that and fun science experiments, nothing like what you're talking about.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. Then I'll tell you what, let's just continue with the observation and we'll kind of go from there if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Dimitri spends a few hours doing an observation, sitting in the back of Andrew's class, just observing Damian's day-to-day. Next thing you know, the bell rings and it's time for the students to go home and Dimitri say goodbye.
Thanks for your time. This is a wonderful observation, and I really appreciate all the information. I'm supposed to set up, the next steps are, I'm supposed to set up a meeting with the parents and maybe sit down with them and sit down with Damian and just kind of hash out a game plan. And then probably we're thinking about setting up a time to bring you and the principal in and kind of go from there. Before I do that, though, I just want to get one just feeling from you. One of the things that's kind of sticking out to me is I kind of want to maybe liven up the classroom time a little bit, specifically to just kind of get a little bit higher rates of engagement back and forth, because I'm just thinking that downtime's a big problem. If I came up with a plan that involved you kind of really catching him being good and really kind of like rewarding him a little more frequently than you normally would, even if it's just gentle praise rather preemptively.
Catch him being good. What do you mean?
Like when he is on task, really focusing on that and jumping in on that rather than just waiting for him to be off task before you come to him.
But what about,
and just like little tweaks like that, would you be willing to kind of like work with me on that?
I can't do that for all the kids in my class. And I mean,
100%.
All the other kids in the class are on task more than him. So I don't really know why.
Spectacular. That's great.
I would do that.
Yeah, so you wouldn't need to do it as much for them than you would for him then. So
yeah, but I want to be fair.
Sure. Then I'll tell you what.
I can make it work.
Let's sit down. I'll tell you what. This is even better because to make it fair, I think I have something for you that we could set up for the whole class that would make a whole fun game of everything.
Oh, cool.
And you could get a little bit more dynamics going on with your lessons and maybe get the kids more involved. Maybe make it a little more conversational, a little less kind of nose in the books. Because it sounds to me like
awesome.
You're a real dynamic teacher. You like dressing up. That's your thing. I think part of the way this process is set up right now, it's really pushing down who you are. And I think we need to let that out. So I'll tell you what, let me meet with his parents. I'm going to write up a little plan here when I get back. I think I'm going to have something for you that's going to feel great. Okay.
That sounds amazing.
Stupendous. I'll get back to you.
Dimitri once again jumps in his absolutely just rockin' Scion XP, and he goes to visit the parents, just have a debrief and talk about his potential ideas.
Hi, Noah, Amelia, Damian. Thank you for having me back. I really appreciate the time with you folks. I had a chance now to see and hang out with Damian here at home and then get a chance to talk to his teacher and do some observations in school. And I can definitely see where some of your concerns are. One thing I will say that the teacher kind of surprised me with, Amelia and Noah, is he kind of waffled back and forth on his actual concern for the problem. And he kind of thinks that he mentioned that you're just maybe a little bit more concerned than he is in regard to this. So just real quick, what is the urgency? What really like struck a fire under you or lit a fire, a certain sense of urgency to reach out? Or am I just missing something?
I thought it was really just, this is kind of the first we'd heard about it. We'd had him going for his ADHD. Like, he's seen his psychologist for the ADHD. He's on meds. And we just really haven't heard concerns like this from
for a long time.
Any of his teachers before.
So you're just looking for answers.
Yeah.
You're just looking, what's going on?
We just want him to do well.
You mentioned he's on meds. What medications is he on?
He's on a med for his ADHD. I think it's,
Adderall.
Yeah,
okay.
Adderall.
Okay.
For a long time, since he was like 7.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. Great. Well, I'll tell you what. I have to be honest with you. This is this case is both difficult and easy for me. I think simultaneously, because of the kind of problem we're working with. I think that Damian is perfectly fine and well-adjusted young man. I think he's got some quirkiness going on, and that's fine. He's a unique person with his own thing. The little repetitive or rigid or ritualistic things that he does where he repeats, that's definitely a thing to keep on the radar, because OCD like tendencies, obsession, rigidity, those are definitely big problems that can spiral over time and lead to more and more severe restrictions in people's capacity and ability to participate in the world. But right now, seeing what I'm seeing, I think the real issue here is he's it's just not engaging. He's just bored. I mean, in terms of it being exaggerated at school versus here. Because here, when he did it, he only really did it when I started asking him direct questions about what was going on. So there was obvious social discomfort, and he was kind of expressing, whatever that anxiolytic response is. It was related to me asking him very direct questions of what's going on. And at school, it was all about, boredom, or just like not knowing what to do and not having clear expectations, not having clear directions. There was some fuzziness. So in the instructions or whatever tasks he needed to do. And he may struggles a little bit with creative thinking, but honestly, some people are creative people, some people aren't. Who cares? I mean, that's just that to me, that's a matter of temperament and preference, not a thing that we should, move mountains to cure here. There's nothing wrong with him. I'm a terrible artist, to be frank with you. So like, not everyone's fit for everything. We all have our special talents and gifts. So my suggestion is going to be, and I think that this should hopefully work with you guys, is I want to set up some time with Andrew, and I already kind of threw it out there to him, and he's already said that he's amenable to it. And I want to I think this is the matter of us going in and setting up some clean opportunities of healthy engagement, increasing kind of like the liveliness and social engagement, and just getting a little more energy and pacing in the classroom. Plus having a little bit more explicit instructions with step-by-step directions that he can go through when he needs to complete tasks, and just kind of work on that particular thing, that pacing, that following instructions, that looking to the instructions, and that solving problems on his own over time a little bit, so that we can fade out those excessive reminders, those excessive kind of like negative attention things going on, where it seems like the only time his teacher really engages with him is when he is off task. So maybe we can flip that on its head and make it so that he's engaging him with him when he's on task and all the time. And he can just defer or redirect him back to the explicit instructions and to the expectations and rules of the game in the classroom when he's not. So some pretty minor environmental tweaks that we're talking about. And what's great about this too, this plan in general, after talking with Andrew, is that it'll get the whole class involved too. We can kind of gamify the whole thing, make it kind of like turn learning into a sport.
He loves games.
Don't we all? So, and I think if we do that, I think we can really kind of get a total handle over this, make school fun again. And also just maybe, decrease some of, if there is any stigmatization or anything going on, just kind of maybe decrease that barrier too between him and his peers, so that it's just kind of like part of the class and not a thing. So that's really my suggestion for this. I really don't have any broad stroke things that I would recommend here at home. Just as one sidebar, maybe, I would slowly start to maybe work in kind of like a one and done policy with things, where, and just kind of teach him to do that, where if he does need to check a lock or do something like that, he goes once, he moves away, and then you can kind of be there to kind of coach him to not do that again and say, hey, we already checked, and just kind of put the brakes on that slowly to maybe pull back on that a little bit. But at this point in time, again, we all have our quirks, we all have our little weird things that we do, and I wouldn't be super concerned about it at this point in time personally.
You don't think he'll get more worried if I don't check the door when he asks, or if he doesn't check it when he's worried about it?
Well, there's no doubt he's going to get more worried about it. Absolutely is.
How will I know if it's locked?
Yeah, you'll know. That's a great question, Damian. I love that you asked that. is that from now on, my suggestion is go check the lock one time. You'll know it's locked, and that's that.
Okay.
One and done, my man. And if you still are unsure, then part of this is a trusting exercise and a learning to feel kind of the discomfort of uncertainty. But again, I'm not going to push you on that. I'm going to let your parents kind of decide how they want to intervene on that, because I think right now what we really came in to accomplish here is what's going on at school and making sure that that doesn't impact your learning moving forward. I'd be happy to set up another time for us to sit down and really troubleshoot this home problem if we really want to tackle it, unless or if you guys are comfortable with it otherwise, because I really do kind of see these two problems as separate issues, to be honest with you. Because and intervening on that thing at home, Amelia, Noah, I'm going to be very straightforward with you. You guys seem to have a very comfortable homeostasis going on in your home life. And the kind of interventions and the kind of things that I would personally recommend would most likely be disruptive to that. And I don't want to do that. And right now I would say, I don't think it's at the level where it necessitates that particular conversation. But that's my thing.
I mean, we're definitely willing to put the work in if it's needed. But I think what you said
I believe that
already is.
So I would just say, give it a test run a little bit for a couple weeks. Try the one and done thing and just kind of see how that goes. And Amelia, he's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. He maybe ask you a bunch of times. I would just really hyper focus on the fact that we already did that. It's completed, and really focus on building the idea of a terminal point, so that way we don't get this notion where we have to continually repeating the needle skipping over the vinyl ad infinitum. So, and just really focusing on that concept and focusing on that idea with him. And maybe why don't we touch base in like, say 3 or 4 weeks, see how that's going for you. And if you guys want to proceed, or if it's going one way or the other, we can really set up a more concrete intervention for how we would go about that. But I think the school is going to work great for what you're really hoping for and what you're hoping to accomplish. And again, Andrew had already said that he's on board. So the hard part, honestly, with these situations is getting the teacher to come along with us. He's already there. So I think it's smooth sailing, to be honest, from here. But
that's great to hear.
We could do one and done. And yeah, I'd love to touch base
Damian?
again.
Does that sound reasonable to you, Damian?
I can try. I think if I look at the lock on the door and I memorize which way is locked, then I might not have to check it as much.
Awesome. In the words of Master Yoda, my friend, do or do not. There is no try. I believe in you. Okay. Thank you for your time, guys. This is wonderful. And I really look forward to working with you in the future.
You made it. This is the point in which you can pause. Think about what you maybe would have done differently. Think if there's any themes throughout this as well. We're going to break character here, and this just turns into a typical podcast where it's just an open discussion. I hope you enjoy.
I guess, I don't know, we kind of, where throughout that process did you think the function was? As you were progressing through that and talking to different people, I imagine it kind of had some ups and downs and changes, but what was your kind of narrative as you were discovering information?
I mean, the whole time I just thought the teacher was boring and the parents were helicoptering. The whole point in my mind, the entire time I was rolling my eyes, to be honest with you. I'm like, overbearing parents who just can't let their kid be okay. They can't be okay with him being a little weird. Like, it's fine. But what you're actually asking me is like, you know, what was my general functional assessment of the situation? Was just like, I mean, exactly that. There's some rigidity. There might be some OCD like tendencies, whatever. Seems like they're incredibly enabled and reinforced at home. And like, he's still very, oh man, I'm going to use this. I don't know if this is a controversial thing to say, but I'm just going to say it. It seems like he's still really babied by his mom. Like, she's on top of him 24/7 and very into his needs and his wants. And on the one hand, that seems and is incredibly nurturing. But on the other hand, you know, at a certain threshold, it flips into smothering and overbearing. So, you know, I'm not sure exactly where the elasticity of that band was necessarily bending, but my inclination was that it was bending a little bit towards the other direction, the not good direction.
Did you see him doing bids to try and get the same, not mothering, but carrying provisions from his teacher? Is that where you saw the kind of delays to start working and pen being dry?
I just saw him I saw it as him just kind of like testing whether or not anyone else cared because he doesn't. I saw it more as apathy.
So this is a lack of motivation in your
Yeah,
perspective.
it was all just kind of like, yeah, who cares about this stuff? Like I can do it. It's fine. It's not hard. It's stupid. It's boring. And I don't really care to participate in this because Andrew's kind of a weak person.
Dear diary, mood, apathetic.
Yeah, he's my teacher's pathetic. I mean, and maybe I'm just, and again, that's like what's going on in my internal monologue, right? So like, who knows if that's the reality of it, right? But I mean, that's what I just saw a person who, you know, again, they had some quirks. I mean, the rigidity could, to me, honestly, the rigidity was a red herring because like the OCD like stuff was obviously much more attention oriented than it was completionist, because rigidity and repetitive behavior, to me, if you want to conceptualize like where does that actually become problematic, it becomes problematic when it crosses a threshold towards completionists, right? I need to finish, you know, because then it becomes a fighting reality against the idea of certainty and uncertainty, and you're in a constant battle against not the idea, the emotion, and the perpetual state of unknowing. So it's creating a state of knowing, and that wasn't what was going on.
Interestingly, though, you didn't ask if anybody had ever prevented him from doing one of his rigidities.
I mean, because they hadn't.
So it's unclear if really the completeness would have posed a problem if someone had prevented it from being completed.
Here's the thing. Sure, maybe, but I would also argue that if someone's a completionist and look, let's break down the idea of obsessive compulsiveness, okay, in a behavioral fashion. I think this will help us all along a little bit. I mean, let's take the words obsession, compulsion, and a behavioral turn of phrase. Like if we were to translate those mentalistic terms into behavioral terms, we're talking about a person being in such a state of deprivation. They are autonomically, neurologically, behaviorally, environmentally compelled, right? Compulsion, compelled to move forward towards that thing to finish it. Okay. He just did not present as a person who was compelled to me. He presented as a person who was screwing around and occasionally and knew that like, hey, did we do that one thing that one time with the thing in the face stuff? You sure? Oh, all right, okay, cool. Wait, did we? Like, I wanted to be like, you know, are you messing with me right now, bro? Like, you know, like is this a straight face? So it just came off a little slapsticky to me, and it didn't have those. And yeah, you know what? That's you actually, Danielle, bring up a great point. Maybe the right question would have been like, have you ever interrupted his rigidity, and have you actually just said no and put your foot down? But the other thing too in the scenario, and this is just how I read the parents, is that they were just too soft, too suburban, too supportive, too loving, too, I don't know, there was no hard line in them. Like that was not the read I got on the situation. But yeah, for thoroughness in the future in real life, yeah, you should probably ask that question. That's a good point. In the moment, as I was trying to navigate the scenario, I didn't feel the need to.
No, and I think you're right, though. I think he didn't present in a way, like you said, that was, if he was presenting with a true OCD, it was very, very early.
Right.
And you were going to check back in 3 or 4 weeks, right? And at that point, you probably would have had a better idea.
And that's why I gave them that little brief one and done intervention. Because if there is early signs of compulsion and they start doing these soft interruptions, they'll get one of two things happen. They'll get it to diminish, because then it's just shenanigans. Or they'll actually get it to start hardening. And again, this part is my personal take on these things. This is just my experience speaking. So there's no reference or anything I can offer someone. Okay. So I just want to be very clear. I'm just me speaking from just clinical judgment experience. But a lot of the times, honestly, it's almost better for those rituals to harden, even though that seems counterintuitive, because then at least they're apparent and clear and you can target something and they're no longer moving targets. When you have soft, loops of rituals, you start seeing bizarre stochastic integration of random variables continually inputting themselves into the ongoing array of behaviors and responses within that particular class, where if it's hardened, at least you have something definitive that you can address. So it was just like what that would have served was a slight hardening of the rigidity. And by hardening, I don't mean like violence. I mean more like clear, stepped and clear ritualization of it. So clear pattern emerging. I mean, I've been working with this caliber. Actually, this is with my wheelhouse. This is the kind of kids I've been doing for quite some time now. They break a lot of the normal conventional rules. Part of what's hard about these kind of characters is that a lot of people would come into a situation like this and want to fix everything. And sometimes doing less is more in these kind of situations. And that's why I was like trying to be as hands off as possible and less interjecting as possible, because you don't want to come in and
I was wondering if that was an intentional least restrictive alternatives kind of approach, just decision of like, yo, let's start here, see where things go.
It's not even least restrictives. It's not even that formal. It's really more like least structuring. Like, it's just, you don't need to, the more sophisticated a person is and the more pliable and responsive they are to rule governance, right? So like verbal behavior, social behavior, the more you can nudge and the less you have to directly program to. And part of the reason why I was really focusing on the idea of the social game is because he had a lot of friends. He seems to like care what they have to say. So social reinforcers have high value. So it's, to me, in these situations, I think about it in terms of there's levels of reinforcers, right? We have direct reinforcers that you contact through direct contingencies. You have indirect reinforcers that you contact through like obvious and shared rules, right? Like the Constitution and the laws and policies and procedures. They're explicit, but they're not necessarily being directly acting on you at any given time. And then there's that third layer of meta contingencies, which are like this, like, the ethereal, unspoken social norms that we don't explicitly write down nor explicitly train to, but they permeate our social and cultural experience. And if you kind of interject in that space and let it kind of bleed down, you see a lot more natural behavioral emerging rather than, some of the stigmatizing stuff that you see, even if you would go like to something like a good behavior game, which has some very clear cut rules, etc., which again, I think that would have been a viable alternative in a situation like this. So I would have probably suggested something like the good behavior game.
I like the promotion of that engagement on the group contingency because it also prevents that our friend being ostracized or singled out when he is so socially able and he has so many friends. If we can just loop up engagement for the whole class and encounter wins with everyone, it really doesn't isolate him.
Yeah, the teacher was another component. I mean, like, honestly, I wasn't sure where you guys were going to go with the teacher. So like in my mind, just based on the last couple episodes we've done, I assumed he was going to be the most resistant person in the room, which that ended up not being the case. But I mean, in most situations, teachers happen to be the most resistant people in the room because depending on the mindset and generation that they come from, or just philosophy, it's a very much my way or the highway kind of highway mentality that you run into. But this particular character, it playing on the theatrical and performative nature of his teaching style kind of helped sell it and helped kind of compel him to want to be involved in it too. So that's also where getting to know kind of like what people do, what methods they use, what techniques they use, how they teach, that kind of thing kind of helps sometimes in how you, even though it wouldn't necessarily change your intervention, it changes the way you would present the intervention to that person to get them to want to participate.
Part of the writing process here was we've had a few episodes that were, characters were pushing back pretty heavily. So we were just like, let's have a couple characters that are just on board, like everyone across the board here was just real easy. So
yeah, no, for
throw
sure.
Throw you a curveball and making it easy.
It did bring up a nice kind of other end of the conversation though, where mom and dad are on board saying, yeah, no, let's do whatever intervention we have to. And as the BCBA saying, no, like, let's actually not.
I literally just had what's so crazy. This is what's crazy. I literally got off the phone 2 hours ago with a person where I had to have this conversation.
Really?
Yeah, they are too on board. And there is such a thing as too much, man. Sometimes your job isn't just to, push intervention, push services. Part of the doing this responsibly is throttling it back too sometimes and making sure people are staying clear-minded. Moderation in all things, said Aristotle. I mean, that goes for behavioral analysis too.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the BCBA had tried to bring about the same sort of token economy or whatever to the parents as well, I mean, I think that it would backfire stupendously trying to run something like
it
that.
would have been horrible. And that's exactly, you're totally right. This is one of those times where if you come in like a freaking freight train in just a big old swinging situation, it's gonna go horrible. Because I mean, the kid was presenting as like a free spirit. I mean, just like anything else, like people go like if you do the opposite, dispositional traits are a thing, right? So I mean, if someone's natural like flow is go with it, and you come in and you're like, not only are you going to go with it, you're going to go with it exactly the way I want you to go with it.
You can earn your hobbies.
That's going to end poorly. It's going to end horribly. And you could just tell too by the parenting style, the dynamic of the family and stuff. It was a very much kind of like a you do you, we do us kind of thing. And there was, like I said, that's why I also focus on the harmony thing. Like, don't disrupt the homeostasis of a home because you want to play clinical experimenter. Like, it's not, these people's lives are not your playground.
Especially on that consultative, I'm kind of an interloper coming in, because the alternative was an intense plan that would have absolutely disrupted the home.
Oh,
and your role within this is not that person that's on call to show up to help when we do stop the compulsion and it goes awry.
Because we're talking about systematic desensitization. I mean, what are we talking about there?
Yeah.
Like we're talking about systematic desensitization. We're talking about a slow roll over time, right? So kind of like Hanley protocol, where you work on start with delays and you work on tolerance. Well, I'm sorry, you work on tolerance responses, then you start with delays. There's a systematic growth based on criteria. But then the other version is licking toilets. It's the germaphobe that you've got out there licking toilets and running through dirty areas and feeling the pain. And like the one requires a massive amount of clinical chops to execute, which is not feasible in this situation. Because, I mean, based on funding sources and logistics and resources, this is not the kind of case that would warrant that level of support from outside funders. So you would have just been bleeding these people dry, and they were definitely willing participants. So they're marks for people who would want to do that to them. But on the other hand, the kind of discomfort you would have given him by just ripping off the Band-Aid and being a total, I don't want to use the word, really intense person with ideas about how
just
things
really
should
controlling,
go.
Man. Like intrusive.
It's counter control, dude. It's intrusive. It's coercion. So why? What do you win by imposing your will on another human being when the problem is not, like, again, the number one thing is social significance, right? When all else fails in these kind of situations, you can default to some pretty basic questions. The basic question is the degree of behavior change here, the gain of behavior change socially significant, or is a particular response that we're dealing with in terms of the impact it's having on his life, right? Socially significant. And would that warrant a medically necessary intervention? No. Any answer other than no is disingenuous, or just doesn't know, like it's uninformed.
So checking in a couple weeks later and seeing how Damian's doing, how do we data collect for that? Do we data collect for that to kind of see if he is doing better with the new supports in place?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, the textbook answer is you data collect. The real life answer is you do a structured clinical interview to get a feel for whether or not there's been that hardening and clarity in terms of the rigidity. And if that has happened, then you institute a data collection protocol so you can actually get a real feed on it. And then you actually probably should do some kind of version of a formal FA or even loose FBA, and really start, then you start doing your work, then you get your hand, you pull your sleeves up and you get in there. But
Only if
I would
there's
say let the breathing room happen and see which way it's going to go. Because sometimes you don't have the necessary information to have an answer. And I don't know yet is a better answer than I'm just going to do something because they want me to do something because I feel the pressure to do something. And
that usually leads to a lot of topical solutions that just don't fit. Too.
It's I don't know yet is, that is an honest professional answer, and it's authentic, and it's more reassuring in my experience, than, being wrong or making things worse because you decided to do something and it just backfired. I don't know how many times, because shoot, Dave and Max, we've worked together for 5 years. How many situations was it our job to clean up the backfiring from well-intentioned people just trying to fix a problem, but they never took the time to define the problem? And that was honestly the whole reason I was pushing back early on, and I was kind of acting nonchalant and being kind of seemingly dismissive and jokey about the whole thing. Was part of it, I was kind of testing my conversational partners to also get a gauge for really how much of an impact is this having on their life. Like, are they attention seeking too here? Because malingering is a thing, and attention seeking doesn't just come from kids. Grown-ups do it too, and some grown-ups love the attention they get from the professionals that get involved in their kids' lives. So you gotta have sometimes some spidey sense about that and be willing to ask the questions and nudge people a little bit and push back on them to see where their sensitivities are coming from too. So when you're doing this kind of a consult, you're not just analyzing the specific person you're coming in to analyze. You're doing an analysis of all the players involved too, because people behavior and people don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in a context. So your analysis consists of an evaluation of their context. And by that means not just the things in their context, but the people as well.
Marvelous.
So that was another, yeah. Thank you. Marvelous.
The interesting nature of us, like Danielle rolling dice and us getting the case this way and then like the dynamic also of us writing in characters and like trying to flesh this out. We had intended to lay breadcrumbs throughout this episode of potential FASD. And so,
okay. So you're saying why didn't I?
Yeah, but like, I think the why is because we didn't write it incorrectly. So this is not like a got you.
Okay.
Well,
no, I don't think it.
But I also think it brings up a good point, like comorbidities and how there's so much crisscross in these DSM diagnoses, and that, maybe he had ADHD, maybe he didn't. Maybe there was some crisscross. Maybe there was no facial features when he was young. Now we're getting to an age where like academically he's maybe not keeping up as much, but no one's really seeing it quite yet because there's these other things. Like when you get a case like that, you wouldn't know necessarily which way to go. And the adopted component was like
one of the things there where it was like, oh, maybe the parents hadn't realized. The generation of the image that you saw though didn't have facial features, so it was to try to hide that. So like
it would not have changed my answer.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. Listen, I think this is the part where we have to have the talk. And the talk is, we're behavior analysts. I don't care what the diagnosis is. Diagnoses are irrelevant. They're categorical expressions that have been formalized by a large governing body that collect response classes and organize them across various features. Great. So they're a great starting point if you have them to start pulling on the thread of what are the particular behaviors that are an actual problem. But they should not be determinant in how you intervene. They're just, to me, if fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is the same as protests. It's a overarching umbrella term that I applied to a response class. It doesn't mean anything in and of itself. So what we were getting was the response class or the particular responses that were fitting in the class of behaviors that made up the problem that we were trying to solve. So again, as a behavior analyst, there's particular rules that you're trying to follow. Number one, you're a pragmatist, which means you're there to solve a problem as fast and efficiently as possible with the most clear-cut road to the end game that you're trying to get to. And if it works, you go for it, number one. Number two is you're a behaviorist. That means that the features, the functions, the variables, the conversations need to be centered around what a person does to act on their environment, not what a person quote unquote is based on a particular label they've been ascribed by someone else who's doing external observations.
I think it's very fair, and I completely agree with you. It's more so like for the listeners out there, we're getting these random variables and then trying to write interesting things around there. And this is the first time so far that like intended writing fell on its face.
What did you guys think I was going to do? Now I want to know what you guys think I was going to do.
We never know what you're going to do, but we were curious if you were going to pull on the strings that would point us there.
That's all. Like, you just didn't pull on the strings.
Yeah. Poor Danielle wrote a whole bunch of notes.
But it turned out really good. And like you said, I think in this particular case, like it wasn't as relevant. If in 3 or 4 weeks you came back and your system was working the way it intended and we were still seeing challenges and new things were popping up or they were showing off more intensely, then it might have presented a different avenue at that point.
Yeah, and the FAS could have fed into intellectual capacity. Honestly, had you given me I shouldn't. If I'm being totally honest,
FAS is a little different. Like there are some memory challenges. There are some things.
Had I actually would have had a straight up FAS as a knowledge, that would have biased what I would have said a little bit.
And this is where we could have had a couple examples in there that would have probably cued that. And that's what I was saying is like, I learned something on the writing process too. Yeah, for sure.
I think it did go into an interesting spot about, again, the topography of the comorbid diagnoses in the sense that, I mean, we're trying to act out or describe these OCD type behaviors, and you're describing it as textbook definition of autism, rigid ritualistic behaviors. And as it kind of played out, I mean, back to what you were saying before, the diagnosis doesn't matter. It's the behavior. And
that's true. It could have been autism. It could have been OCD. It could have been ADHD. It could have been FAS. It could have been a million and one other things. But what mattered was the particular responses that were inhibiting his behavior, that were inhibiting his I'm sorry, not his behavior, but his success, his social and educational success. That's really, yeah.
I think we're good.
And that actually tells you a lot of the time. Sometimes too much information is bad too. Like sometimes you got to protect yourself from the diarrhea of the mouth that people get, where they just want to like tell you everything up front. That was actually made a note of my note here that was one thing I wanted to kind of point out. That at the beginning of it, when I first knocked on the door and I walked in, Noah's dad just said, "Hey."
Straight from the beginning, because I've been going to Noah's been going with this kid to psychologists. He knows let's tell the whole backstory. Let's tell the narrative. He's adopted. We got him here. Yeah.
So
love it.
The second that happened, I was like, no. So conversational control tactics, direct response interruption, redirection, and gearing towards the direction you needed to go, focusing on the particular problem. Because again, that's just learning over time. Also, some of the tactics that people use to control the outcome of their interactions with professionals too. And that's when we're talking about malingering, is that like over disclosure to professionals is a control tactic. It's a way to monopolize the conversation and what direction it's going, and to monopolize the information flow, so you don't have an opportunity to possibly control or mitigate the bias that they want to build into you, because people want affirmation. I mean, what do people want more than anything in the world? It's to be right and win at everything. So, and parents in particular, or caregivers, they don't like to be told that they're wrong about their kids, even if they are. So the second he did that was my spidey sense popped, in that I need to get control over these people, otherwise they're going to steamroll me, and then I'm going to be in there just talking. I'm just going to sit in there and be a receptacle for their words. I'm never going to get a word in edgewise if I didn't stop and set that straight.
Your code word for this episode, if you're interested in earning BACB CEUs, is counter control. Again, that word is counter control. Head over to explanatoryfiction.com, purchase the quiz, complete the quiz, and then your CEUs are sent to you automatically. Again, that word is counter control. The views expressed during the Explanatory Fiction podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, employer, or company. Assumptions made in the analysis are not reflective of any position of any other entity other than the authors, and since we are critically thinking human beings, these views are always subject to revision, change, and rethinking at any time. Please do not hold us to them in perpetuity. This podcast is to educate and inform, provide discussion, and does not constitute professional advice. Remember again that the variables in this case were randomly generated, as well as the name and the episode imagery. Thank you, math. Thank you, science. And thank you, artificial intelligence. Rhino LLC is an approved continuing education provider that is ACE number #OP-19-3037, and the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, also known as the BACB, a registered trademark, does not sponsor or approve or endorse Rhino LLC, the materials, information, or sessions identified herein. Thank you for listening.